The pressure to end the violence in Gaza is following President Biden beyond the White House. At a fundraiser last night in Minnesota, a protester who identified herself as Rabbi Jessica Rosenberg interrupted the president, calling for a ceasefire.
Mr. President, if you care about Jewish people as a rabbi, I need you to call for a ceasefire right now.
Biden responded saying he understood the emotion and he called for a humanitarian pause, saying, quote, "I think we need a pause. A pause means give time to get the prisoners out." But he was careful not to say he supported a ceasefire. That video was released by the group Jewish Voice for Peace. Let's turn now to Eylon Levy, a spokesperson for the Israeli government. Thanks so much for being here with us and for making time. We just played that clip from that fundraiser last night. President Biden saying last night that he supports pausing the fighting to get the hostages out. Is that something your government would consider?
Israel has already twice temporarily paused hostilities in order to get the hostages out. Clearly, if there's a prospect of releasing our innocent hostages, then we will not bombard those areas in order to get them out safely. That is indeed the case. And if we're able to get our hostages out, those 240 people, including babies, then absolutely it would be possible to have a temporary cessation to facilitate their safe evacuation.
And it sounds like that would be based on intelligence and an agreement. Is that what would motivate you to do that again?
Our assessment is that the current ground operation is advancing the conditions to help free our hostages. We've already seen 4 hostages released under heavy international pressure. We're calling on more international pressure to release the rest of them immediately and unconditionally. But Hamas isn't suddenly going to develop a humanitarian backbone and release the children it abducted out of the kindness of its own heart. We're moving in order to physically free the hostages and put that pressure on Hamas to release them immediately and unconditionally. And the United States has been very clear that there's no excuse for abducting children and innocent people like that from their beds and holding them hostage in the Gaza Strip.
Mm-hmm. And we just heard from the U.S. Secretary of State, Tony Blinken. He's departing and en route now to Israel with the newly confirmed Ambassador Jack Lew. And at one point, he highlighted not just discussing the day of and the moment to moment as you all are living in it, but the day after. Essentially, he said, setting conditions for a durable, sustainable peace. Those were his words. And that you all will be talking about that. Is Israel ready to have that conversation right now?
We're exploring several different contingencies for the day after Hamas, but I want to stress this is premature. It's like discussing the Marshall Plan before the Battle of Stalingrad. We're still very early on in our campaign to defeat Hamas and destroy it in response to the October 7th massacre. There are several scenarios that are on the table. I can tell you the common denominator between all of them is that the Gaza Strip will be completely demilitarized. When this campaign is over, we will not go back to a world in which this enclave can be used to attack us with rockets, thousands of rockets just in the last few weeks, for the invasions of the death squads that burned, butchered, raped, beheaded people on October 7th. But it's very premature. We know that the battle ahead to dislodge Hamas, just as the world took many years to wipe out ISIS in Syria and Iraq, that road is going to be long, it's going to be difficult, and there will be a time to have those discussions.
And I understand what you're saying in that you are very much in this right now. But your government and the IDF have both repeatedly said that your plan is to wipe out Hamas, that is what will happen. And so what does that potentially look like if it's a demilitarized Gaza? What would that look like?
It is very premature to look at what the day after scenario is going to look like. We're in this war not because we initiated it, but because Hamas declared war on us on October 7th with that massacre, leaving us no choice but to move in and to exercise our right to self-defense by dismantling the terror organization that perpetrated that. I wish I could come and say that there were an organized plan and vision in advance, but this is a war that we were surprised by and dragged into. And we look forward to working with our international partners to rebuild the Gaza Strip the day after Hamas in a way that it can no longer pose a threat to the security of our people, but I think also just as importantly that it can never be used again by a terror organization that has subjugated it like it has in the last 16 years and diverted all that humanitarian aid into building its tunnels, building its rockets. And we hope the day after Hamas will be safer not only for the people of Israel, but the people of the Gaza Strip as well.
And the State Department here in the U.S. has said it's concerned about growing Israeli settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. That that is likely to be talked about as well as the U.S. officials are there in Israel. What do you think the Israeli government should be doing about that?
Clearly, we deplore anyone trying to take the law in their own hands and firmly condemn any vigilantism or hooliganism. That is not our way. Those are not our values. At the moment, we're focusing on defeating Hamas in the Gaza Strip and trying to stop this conflict from escalating further. We know that Hamas, immediately with the October 7th massacre, called on Palestinians in the West Bank to grab their guns, grab their knives, and go and attack Jews. They've been trying to drag Hezbollah into this war as well. And at the moment, we're trying to defeat Hamas and stop anything that could lead to a wider escalation of violence.
All right. Eylon Levy, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Anytime.